Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to model area and perimeter using algebra tiles, but we're going to use algebra tiles online. Okay, and so algebra tiles are just tiles that we kind of use to kind of help us figure out some expressions, right? So if we look at this, looks like a rectangle, notice that this side is y, this side's y, which means that this side would also be y, this would also be y. Okay, so that means for square number 1, our perimeter, and again, the perimeter is the outside part of the shape, we would say y plus y plus y plus y, and so we would get 4y. We talk about the area, right? The area is the inside of the shape. So what's the area of a rectangle? We can find that by saying length times width. So we can just say y times y. So y times y, and we get y squared, right? If I do the second shape right here, right, that would be x plus x plus x plus x plus x, because x and x here, which means that these two sides are the same, and these two sides are the same. So 4x for the perimeter, and then x times x, or aka x squared, is the area. And then last but not least, number 3, if this is 1, this would also be 1. If this is x, this is also x. This length would be the same as this length if we were putting these tiles together. So our perimeter would be 1 plus x plus 1 plus x, or aka 1 plus 1 is 2, and then 2x. And then our area, we would multiply 1 times x, which is just plain old x. We don't actually need that 1. All right, so let's take a look at these shapes, these images, and what I want us to find is I want us to find two things, okay? I want us to find the area and perimeter, okay? So on this shape, so let's do number 1, and then you guys can pause the video and try number 2 on your own. Okay, so what do I know? I know that this is y squared, so this must mean that this is my area of this individual shape, which means if this is y squared, this had to be y, and this had to be y. If this is y and this is y, that means if this is y, that means down here also has to be y. Now notice over here, I want this little piece, this little dude right here. All of this right here is y. But I don't want all of it. I just want this piece. So I'm going to leave that alone for just a second. I'm going to put a question mark next to it. Okay, if this is x squared, I know that this has to be x and this has to be x, because x times x gives us x squared. Again, I know that all of this is x, but I want to know this guy. This time I'm going to put blue question mark. And last but not least, I have this little square. This is supposed to have a 1 in it, which means that this would be 1, this would be 1, and this is 1. Okay, so let's think about the blue question mark. So all of this is x. That means that the question mark plus this little guy right here, which is 1, is equal to x. So how do I solve for that question mark? The question mark is x minus 1. So that's that question mark. The second question mark, the red question mark, all of this, right, is y. So I'm going to say, oops, sorry, erase that. So I know that for the second question mark, this question mark plus this, which is equal to x, is equal to y. I want to solve for the question mark, so that must mean that this is y minus x. So why is this really important? Because I want to find my perimeter. All right, so for my perimeter, so P is equal to perimeter. So I'm going to start up here, so y plus x, put a little check mark next to those, plus another x, and then 1, 2, 3, and then boop, 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 and then our question mark, which is now here, so x minus 1, check mark, and then another question mark, which is right here, y minus x, bam, and then y and y, and there's our perimeter. Let's add them all up. So how many y's do I have? I got 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 y's. How many x's do I have? I got 1, 2, 3, but then I'm subtracting 1. So really that's 2 x's. And then how many 1's do I have? I have a negative 1 and I have a 3, so that must mean that it's 2. So that is my perimeter. My area on this problem, my area is just, I'm going to add up all the pieces of the area. So I know the area of that rectangle is y squared. I know this area of that is x squared. And I know the area of this is just plain old 1. So our area, add up all the individual pieces because that's all area is. Perimeter is all the outside. So go ahead, use your clues on the second one to try to come up with your area and perimeter. So go ahead, pause the video now. All right, so if we're coming back from the paused video, I notice that this is x and y. So I know that one side is x and one side is y. I'm going to use this clue. So this is a y. So that must mean that one side is y and one side is x. So notice that this is the length of x, and notice that this is the length of y. Notice that this also has a y, so it is safe to assume that this value right here will be your y, which means up here will be your x. So x times y, xy, which means this is also x. So what do I have to multiply y by to get to y? And that would be 1. So this is a 1, which means that this is a 1, and this is a 1. And this is 1, this is 1, and this is 1. I'm going to use my same skills over here. So this is x. I'm going to assume that if this side is 1, this is probably going to be the 1, which means that this side has to be my x, and this side has to be my x. So now I have another question mark right here. So if I know this whole side is y, I know that my question mark plus this little piece right here, which is 1, should equal y. So that means my question mark is y minus 1. So how do I find my perimeter? So let's add this up. So I have a y, check mark, x, check mark, 1, 2, 3, question mark, y minus 1, check and check. And then I have an x and x, so that's 2 x's plus 1, so bam, bam, and bam. 3 and another x, so 3 and x. So how many y's do I have? I have 1, 2, I have 2 y's, so 2 y's. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 x's, so 4x. And then 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 3 gives me 6. So that is my perimeter. And then my area. So I have an xy. So I'll add that up. And then I have 3 of these y's. So we can say 3y. And then I only have 1 of these x's. So I have 1x. So xy, 3y, and x for your perimeter and area. All right, so why are these important? Okay, well, we're going to use them to kind of use these algebra tiles to kind of create rectangles, because the area of a rectangle is very easy, right? It's just length times width. So if we know that it's length times width, we're going to be able to multiply some binomials together in order to get a rectangle. So what do I mean by that? We're going to use algebra tiles in a different sense, and it kind of looks like this. So we are going to use online algebra tiles. So how are we going to use online algebra tiles? First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little smaller so we can still see our questions. And I'm going to pop up algebra tiles. So what you are going to do, all right, I'm going to put this in for perspective. You're going to Google algebra tiles. So you might have to pause the video as you do this, but you're going to type in CPM algebra tiles, all right? So go ahead, pause the video, and copy this into your browser. Okay, so if you've done that, press enter. You got this. So you are going to press the first button that you see. So again, pause the video and press this button. And it's going to lead you to this. Now, When I first showed you, I was on this page. So what you are going to do is we are going to use algebra tiles. So we're going to click on this box for algebra tiles. All right. I'll move this over just a smidge. Move this over just a smidge so we can kind of see a little bit better. Okay, so anytime you want an algebra tile, all right, you can bring an algebra tile out. So here's our x squared, so this side would be x and this side would be x. If I want another one, boom, got another one. I want an x. I want a 1, right? Notice that the 1 matches up with the bottom of the x, and notice that this x tile matches up on this side of the x, or sorry, side of the x squared. And the same thing will work over here. So again, notice that this is x will match up here, and then the y. Now, how am I going to match the y up? What you are going to do is you are going to double click. So if you double click this value, so click twice, and then you can click and drag and move it. If you only click this once, so say you click it once, notice that it turns red. And so that just means that you have a negative value, which is fine. We're just not going to deal with negative values. Okay, so we're going to turn it back to positive. So again, you can grab as many of these algebra tiles as you want, so you have an infinite number of supplies. When you're done with all of these, you're going to click somewhere on your screen. So I'm going to click in the upper corner, and then I'm going to make a little box. I'm going to drag, and I'm going to highlight all of these. All right, and I want you to pause the video and kind of play around with algebra tiles and moving things around. Okay, and so notice that I can click and move all of them around at one time. Say I don't want them anymore. They're all highlighted, so I don't want them anymore. So move them back over here, and now they're all gone. I can make these algebra tiles smaller. I can make them larger. Okay, I'm pretty much going to keep them all exactly the same. Right? I'm going to make this smaller. I can make this larger. We do want to see a difference between our y squares. So what I want you to do is I want you to drag out 1x squared. So here's 1x squared. And then notice that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 x's. So we're going to drag out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 x's, and then it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to play around with this, and what we're trying to do is this. The area of a rectangle can be written as the sum of all of its parts. Right? So the area, we're going to create a rectangle in just a second. So what I want you to do is play around with this, and I want you to create a rectangle using all of the pieces. So notice that here now, I have a rectangle. Notice that I still have a rectangle, right? I can maybe potentially move it here. Notice I no longer have a rectangle anymore. Okay? So I need to use these ones to let me still have a rectangle. So what I want you to do is I want you to create a rectangle. It's easier if your x squared is kind of in a corner, so either upper or lower corner. And go ahead and kind of create and play around with your area tiles and try to answer these two questions. On part 2, we're going to come back, we're going to see an answer, potential answer for your area tiles, and then continue to play around with some area tiles.